What's up, guys? Welcome to the first live show of 2023. It's been a hot minute since we last hung out, huh? I guess it's been at least a couple of months. Like usual, we are starting just a little bit early. We usually like to start off about 10 minutes early just so that we can test audio, make sure there's no weird dropped frames or anything like that that sometimes tends to happen on some bad streaming days. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So in chat, let me know if the audio sounds good. As far as I can tell, uh, it seems like the audio meters and everything like that look pretty good. And we're just getting situated here. How's your weekend, everybody? How's your weekend? Got anything planned other than hanging out and doing a choral live show? All right, so I got two computers in front of me. One that's doing all the streaming, and the other one that I'll be chatting with and doing all of that other fun stuff. So real quick, you guys, what is up, Courtney Jameson, Southland Sid, Jaden, Be the Fountain, Macy's Daddy, Coral Gardens, Alien, Hillbilly Reefer, Anton Ta, Plastipede. I see a couple of some familiars as well as some new faces. New faces. I wanted to say faces because it's on Macy's Daddy. Oh boy. More coffee, I think, is needed. What is up, Harkins Aquatics? So Harkins is he lives out in Las Vegas, and when I visited out there to go visit Graham Stephan and a couple other folks, Harkins was kind enough to be basically our ride for the whole weekend. He drove us everywhere. The volume's a little low. Let me see if I can do something about that. It could just be that I'm quiet. Oops. What the heck is this all about? Well, I'm not gonna be able to change it. That was acting very suspicious, so I'm not gonna do that. So anyway, I'll just try to speak up just a little bit louder, I guess. A little bit louder. Yeah, that was a curious little interaction there, broadcasting software. I don't like it. A little tinny. Yeah, nothing really different than any other time I do this. So I'm not really sure. I guess I could just actually let me see if I can do something. That's what's happening. Oh, I'm an idiot. So remember when I said that I'm using two computers? Well, I was trying to type. What the heck? This is not doing it either. I was trying to type with the other computer. Oh, that's definitely not doing it. Let me see. Audio mixer. Let me see. Oh, no. Let it undo. Huh. Yeah, dudes, I don't know. I don't know. Here we go. Okay, I got it. How's this? Does this sound any better? I'm gonna go ahead and push it to the thing. Maybe it sounds better. You have to let me know. Okay. Oh man. Okay, so I told this thing to undo something. Not really sure what it might have been. So hopefully that's not super duper bad. Okay. All right. let me close this window down. Okay. Sorry guys, getting situated here. All right, with the remaining 4 minutes, I'm going to quickly say my thank yous here. So real quick, So first of all, we'll go through the Patreon list. So thank you to Big Lord Chi, Brandy Camp, Harkins Aquatics, Jeremy Altman, Scott Williams, Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Chuck Admire, Greg Bauer, perhaps? Baugher, Bauer, Greg Zimmerman, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Kyle Jameson, Lisa Clow, Lynn Holt, Michael Shelley, Puddle Aquatics, Reef Infidel, Ryan Baker, Sean Howie, Skylar Korn, Sue Hemmons, Thomas Tarrant, and Tim Garner. And on the YouTube member side of things, we have JB Bryan, Terry Kuhn, Tampa Bay Aquaculture, Stories Reef, Herb777, Keith Holland, Justin Harden, and 328 Reef. So thank you all very much. And thank you to our 2 corporate sponsors. We have Ecotech Marine and we have Polyp Lab, which I'm sure will come up in discussion later as we chat and rap about all sorts of things, right? So I did see a couple of questions come through earlier. Southland Sid was asking, how does this work? Do you buy off the website or is it a sale for a month? You buy it off the website. And so if you go to tidalgardens.com/live, you will be able to see all the different corals. And you can mix and match with anything that's just from the regular website, like the stock items and the what you see is what you get. Or you can go to that live sale category. And the only thing is you have to check out. Just having it in your shopping cart doesn't do anything. Sometimes people get confused by that, but putting it into your shopping cart does not reserve it for you at all. So especially if it's a very busy show, you'll want to check out more frequently, otherwise you will probably be losing out on them. If you are placing multiple orders like that, to avoid getting dinged for shipping each time, there is a adding to an existing order option when you're going through the shipping and delivery stuff. So just keep that in mind as well. And if you happen to overpay for shipping, we refund it once we start to put together the shipments. So like early next week, we'll send out all those refunds. So that's kind of how that works. I'll go over how to do that again a couple times during the show, just for the other people that are straggling and late and having like no idea how that works. Okay. So let's see. Alien, do you have any soft corals for sale today? Yes. We have a little bit of everything. I mean, there's about 250 some odd corals that we show on the show. And there might be also some sales on some of the existing things that we've got, just like on the website. So keep an eye out on both of those things. Let's see. Will a Picasso trigger eat my cleaner shrimps? Very likely. Yeah, very likely. Okay, so Coral Gardens is saying that it sounds okay now, and Kyle Jameson was saying it was fine either way. Okay, so in the past, I had to be a little bit more conscious of like the amount of noise that was in this room. I mean, it was always quiet, but there was a little bit, maybe been a little bit more of like a reverb and stuff like that, and the noise reduction filter on this tended to help out a lot with that. But now that there's like a huge cloud ceiling in here, that it's very, very acoustically deadening. And yeah, now that that thing is in here, perhaps like a de-noise filter that's done in software, it's like a little too aggressive and it might be like stripping out way more of my voice because that's the only noise that it actually hears. All right, guys, ready? Hopefully when I switch over, this will go all right. Fingers crossed, right? So we're starting off with some Sci-Fastria. And so for the folks that are new, I should probably just go over like what it is that you're seeing visually when we go over corals. So that little thing on the top left of the screen, it's way the heck over there, right? It's kind of showing a color temperature rating. And so for every single coral, for about 30 seconds, we're going to show it going from like a daylight color all the way to an actinic, like high Kelvin color. So you can kind of get an idea, at least, on what it might look like under different forms of lighting. You can see like how much of a discount it is off of retail. And like I said, if you wanted to actually purchase these things, you have to complete the checkout process. Also, this is new since the last time we did a show. We are in the process of moving to a new website, and we are very close. But one thing that you'll probably notice is during the checkout process, we don't have just a regular credit card checkout field. We are limited to PayPal, and that is because our regular credit card processing thing, its module like finally expired, and like the long story short, our website was kind of old, and a couple of the modules were like dying here and there, and unfortunately one of the ones that died was the Square credit card processing. So you can still pay by credit card, you just have to do it through PayPal. And I know some people don't like PayPal, but them's the breaks. And unfortunately, it'll be like a week or two, I think, before we launch the new website, which I'm actually super excited about, because just like how we went from the growing pains involved in like doing this website, I'm sorry, the growing pains with going from like the greenhouse to this new building, you know, you learn like a lot of things, and you have like a laundry list of features that you want. And it took a little while, but we finally, put together a website that had fixed so many of the little quibbles that the current website has. So again, super excited about getting that underway. And it should help out a lot performance-wise, and it'll be a lot better organized also. Let's see. Something about Bernardipora might not be Bernardipora at all. There's no research that's being done on any of this stuff. When it gets to like really granular coral stuff, nobody funds that, so I would not put a whole lot of emphasis into like the fringes of unpopular coral classification. It's going to change a lot. It's better now, but has a smidge of static. Could be. Hillbilly Reefer, how was your holidays? It was pretty good. Didn't do a whole lot. Are you planning to open back up to the public this year? We are able to take appointments to do shopping and stuff like that, but we're really limiting it right now. So most of the appointments that we're scheduling are on Friday during the day. So if you want to try to come in on a Friday during the day, reach out to us and we might be able to get you on the calendar. I'll tell you though, for the past 3 years where we've had nobody come in, it's been kind of nice. We've been able to get a lot done here at the facility, and we've been super busy just in general with like all the growth and all the different projects. We are finally at the point where we could probably take in some more guests. Like it's been kind of by invite for the past year or so, but we have had like a handful of people, like less than 10, come in sort of recently. Jude Clark, hi from South Africa. Any plans on international shipping? No. Unfortunately, we do get a lot of inquiries about international shipping. The logistics of shipping internationally are pretty crushing. Um, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're talking about huge volumes of coral, which most people are not really equipped to handle. A lot of countries out there for shipping and receiving international coral trade, stuff like this, they're not even set up for it. So bringing stuff into a lot of different countries might be um, a really hectic process. The paperwork alone is going to be hundreds of dollars per box, and there's going to be a lot of boxes. And then there's like the shipping involved as well. I don't know what UPS international rates are, but I can pretty much guarantee you that any shipment going overseas, like just the shipping fees and paperwork and whatnot, is going to be thousands, not a couple thousands. It's going to be closer to 10,000s just for the shipping. So it is very, very, very unlikely. It might make sense if, like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, unless you're filling a plane with coral, it's gonna look pretty bad. It's gonna look really, really bad financially. Any partners in Canada? No, we really don't. I only know like a few people in Canada. One of them being our sponsor, Polyp Lab. We're friendly with March. I can't remember his store's name. Fragbox, I think, and we're friendly with um, Reef Wholesale. So that's Patrick over there. But we don't really do like businessy stuff. Jermaine Drummonds. I haven't seen a live stream in over a year. Finally glad to catch one. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. It's been an interesting year, gotta say. Reef the Sea Forever. How much is shipping to Cali? Our shipping rates currently, and I say that with a big old asterisk, it's $29.99 flat rate, and it's free if your order totals over $250. I say with a huge asterisk is because it's likely to go up. We haven't raised our shipping in years. In fact, we've been lowering it, but yeah, shipping nowadays is so expensive, and they've raised it 7% for this calendar year. It's a lot. It's a whole lot. Like I joke that I buy UPS like a Ferrari every year or something like that. It's way worse now. It is way, way worse. If I know that nobody likes to pay for shipping, so therefore spend enough to get the free shipping threshold. It's a very good deal. The amount that people are charging, or that people have to charge, especially the ones that have lower volume, it's getting crazy. Are you guys familiar with like a website called shipyouraquatics.com? So they're kind of like a third-party seller of like FedEx shipping. And I remember like years ago, to send like a relatively small box across the country, you could go to like Ship Your Aquatics, and you have to provide your own box and everything like that. But they would basically let you ship on their account. I think that's how that works. It's a third-party shipping service. And so the shipping fee would be something like 30 or 40 bucks. Clearly, like I'm charging $29.99, so it's more than that. But for like some random person that just wanted to send like some frags from New York to California, it might be like 45 bucks, something like that. Recently, I checked again out of curiosity, and that same box going from New York to California, I think was like $120 on like this third-party shipping thing, meaning that the retail to send that box is over $200. That is how expensive shipping can be. We're very fortunate because we do have like a good rate. We do ship a lot, but it ain't $29.99. So we're gonna have to like do something about that. But not today. So guys, if you are interested in placing an order, either get to $250 or take advantage of the $29.99 while it's still here. Um, it is beyond aggressive at that price point. Let's see. Bert, how much GFO do you use in a month on average? Uh, Tough to say. Like, I don't like to use GFO at all. We don't have super high phosphate right now. We have some phosphate. I mean, it's going to be in the ballpark of like probably maybe like zero point 0.2 in some cases. We used to have way higher, like 2 parts per million phosphate. And we've been bringing that down with GFO and changing like how much and what we feed the tanks. But it's tough to say. Like, we use the high capacity stuff, and we probably go through like a 5-gallon bucket of it every few months. Ideally, we would use none if I had the choice. Raul, how do you pay for these items? So you go to tidalgardens.com/live. There's a link in the description. And also, there's also like a frequently asked questions link. Definitely check that out as well. You basically put it all into your shopping cart and check out. But you go to Tidal Gardens, the website. Let's see. Let's see some Goniopora Ferrari guy. There are some. I don't know what number they are, but there's definitely some on the show. So Courtney Jameson is asking, how long usually do the frags grow on the plugs before the sales go live? That really depends. And you can just kind of tell by looking at the plugs. For example, we're looking at these zoanthids right now. You can tell they've been around for a while because if you look at the plug, it is not clean. It is covered in coralline algae. The little glue portion that stuck that zoa down, it's getting covered with coralline. That's like a pretty good sign. Another good sign, so we're still like stuck on the zoas, but I'm sure like the previous corals you may have seen that are growing down over the plug, it really is like all over the place as far as that goes. There's very few corals that are like recently glued and then put onto the show. Maybe there's like a handful, but I'm gonna guess 200-ish have been in the systems for quite some time and have grown down. Let's see. Chapman Richardson. I would like to stir my sand bed more. What's your top sand sifters excluding crabs, or should I just go bare bottom? There's that whole debate as to like, whether you want a sand bed or not. That to me is a completely personal preference thing. You can make both work just fine. I know some people are just like absolutely no substrate, and I know some people are like, I'm gonna have a substrate no matter what complications it might cause. I don't care. I like the look of it. I'm gonna do it. For us, I think that my favorite all time is it's like a orange diamond goby. We haven't had one in a really long time because we don't really have substrate in our systems. It was an orange spot diamond goby. But those things were super, super cool. They get really tame. They'll like eat out of a turkey baster if you let them. They do really interesting stuff. They'll like take sand and like dump it onto like rocks and almost like farm it for critters and then like gobble up the sand. They would do stuff like that. They kept the sand bed absolutely pristine. The only problem is that they jumped. So if you have like a covering over your tank, that's probably the fish that I would go for. Let's see. Baudine, can you help introduce a bit about Favites? Are they LPS, maybe a brain coral? Yeah, pretty much. They're considered LPS. and they are considered a kind of a brain coral. I mean, brain coral, I don't know if that's a very meaningful designation. There's a lot of corals that kind of get thrown in as brain corals. We've done a couple of different videos on Favia and Favites. Definitely check the latest one out. We did it a few months ago. Coral Gardens. We are a small coral farm in Vancouver, Canada. First year in business. Any advice you would give for your first year? Sales fixes everything. That's it. As long as you can get sales, things are probably going to be okay. And you can fix almost everything else after that. But if you're having like rough times with sales, it's going to go much more poorly, and regardless of what else you do. So sales first. Fix that. Let's see. No form. Hello. Do you still have non-photosynthetic sea fan? Best regards from Poland. Well, welcome. No, I think pretty much all of our sea fans currently are photosynthetic. We've never really done great with the non-photosynthetic ones. Like, we don't really go out of our way to feed them anything. In fact, we're dialing back a lot of our really creative feeding stuff because we've been feeding recently some stuff like oyster feast, roe, TDO, like the powder. That's all from like Reef Nutrition. We've been using like obviously the Polyp Lab stuff, Reefroids. We've been using some of the frozen foods that we use that we do, like we make our own. And when you do that, some of the corals really like it. That's great. But a whole bunch of filter feeders also like it. And not every filter feeder is something that you want to start to aggressively grow. And it's not just like vermitid snails. Like vermitid snails, if you have like a couple of vermitid snails and you start doing a lot of broadcast feeding, you're about to have a lot more vermitid snails, right? So we wanted to like tamp down vermitid snail growth. But even like little feather dusters, harmless little feather dusters, right? And anything and everything is trying to get a foothold, replicate, and choke out everything else around it. So even these little tiny feather dusters, that little bit of annoyance that they do to corals does in fact annoy them. There's certain like cleanup crew type worms, like spaghetti worms and stuff like that, or Medusa worms that people like. And if you have enough of them, they can bother corals, especially like Blastomussa and stuff. And so like this type of broadcast feeding we have to be a lot more careful with. But going back to your question, you have to do that type of feeding times 10 for non-photosynthetic gorgonians. So that's not something that we're interested in. Hillbilly Reefer, are you getting on the Kalkwasser train like so many others? And if so, how are you dosing it? That train has been around since like the 1970s, just to let everybody know. There is no Kalkwasser trend. Like, that is like saying, have you tried the internal combustion engine? What do you think? Like, it is super, super, super classic reef keeping. Like, you can find books like from the earliest days talking about calc. We got away from it for the longest time because it's not that it doesn't work or anything. It's because of how things operate in a coral farm. We have to, in order for us to do anything, we have to make it as idiot-proof as possible. Specifically because I've been that idiot many times myself. And it's one thing when the owner is the idiot. But when an employee screws something up, very different dynamic, right? So we needed to make it a system that was very, very resistant to screwing up. And calc is one of those things that is very easy to screw up. And when you screw it up, it could go really, really badly because it is very aggressive chemically. So, having said that, we had gone without doing calc for years and years and years. And it's only since we've gotten into a lot of like controllable dosing systems where we felt comfortable again trying calc. And since getting back into calc, I quite like it a lot. I've always liked it. It was just can we get the idiot factor worked out? And the dosing systems helped a lot. We have run some Camowar dosers before. We've run some Neptune dose pumps before. And now my current favorite is the Ecotech Versa pumps. All of them work, but the Versa has been the easiest one to set up, and it has been dead silent, which is obviously, if you know anything about me or this channel, that's kind of an important thing. It's really, really quiet because in comparison, the Neptune one sounded like an aircraft engine. Like it was the loudest device in this entire building times 10. Like it used to be protein skimmers. Protein skimmers used to be insanely loud in here. No, it was the Neptune dose pump. I mean, that thing you could hear throughout the entire building and would echo and everything. Super loud. I cannot tell when the Ecotech Versas are running. So big thumbs up to that. And I'm not even trash talking. They're the same company now anyway. But I happen to like the Versas quite a lot. So we're probably going to be using those more. But no, I like Calc. Calc has been one of those things that if you need to dose a lot of calcium and alkalinity, and you happen to be topping off a lot, it's really, really nice. And it's a nice pH boost as well. I did a whole video on it. You can see. Let's see. Jimmy from Reef Lounge in California. He has a farm in Indonesia. I don't know. I don't know who that is. And I'm sure that there's like a lot of places that do import export. That is one aspect of the industry that I have never been into. I've heard many horror stories, and it's not just like, oh, you know, like the feds came in and kicked my door down, which I've heard those stories too. I'm talking about just like the regular boring stuff that turn into nightmare situations. Like, oh, a flight was canceled, so we can't even move your corals from Dallas to you. They're all going to die over the weekend. Great. Or it's like there was a flight canceled, there's a flight delay, and they are going to come to you, but they're going to land at about 2 in the morning. And so when you pick it up at about like 3 or 4, you're going to be unpacking for the next 5 hours and then go about the rest of your workday. So stuff like that, you know. I'm going to go ahead and pay the premium to the folks that do that professionally, and they get to make their profit. I get to pick and choose some corals. It's all good, but me directly importing, no thanks, I'm good. Let's see, Dominic Moore. And by the way, guys, I'm sorry that I'm so far behind on chat. I get talky. So first off, Gregory said, good afternoon. Good afternoon as well. Are there going to be any acros? Yes, there are. Very quick and easy. Dominic, how's the Bergia doing for you? They're all gone. I know your Trochus never seem to propagate. That's true. The Trochus never do. I'm in Michigan, and mine are doing great. I actually collect Aptasia from others. Okay, so here's my problem. We need to farm Aptasia better. So what'll happen is our Bergias will go crazy. We will put them all throughout this entire place. They will eliminate all the Aptasia, and we will try to sell as many as we can. And frankly, sometimes they show up on frag plugs. We send them out, you know, along with the frag plugs. You know, congratulations, you got a free Bergia. And eventually, they all just expend the Aptasia that we have here. And unfortunately, we lose them all because we're not able to aggressively farm Aptasia enough in a controlled setting. I'm actually setting up a tank to try to do it better. I know, crazy. And so what happens is it's like this wildfire of Bergia nudibranchs. They wipe out all the Aptasia. And then months later, an Aptasia shows up. And then another one, and another one. It's like, okay. And so you kind of have to start the whole thing over again. So, I mean, consider it just like this flushing mechanism of like Bergias, they go crazy, eat up all the Aptasia, and then once they all starve, hopefully you guys are going to like be able to give them away to your friends and stuff like that, sell them, I don't care what you do, right? But share the love a little bit, also give them something to eat. But then, once they're all gone, it's like Aptasia slightly invincible. So they'll come back, and then you can do the whole process again. All right. Ferrari guy, after setting up a new tank, how long do I have to wait to add corals? That's a really good question. You're going to get very, very, very different answers. Some people I know, prominent people, have no problem being like, day one, I'm going to put 50 corals into this tank. No problem. Because the corals, they in and of themselves, are basically everything you need to start a tank successfully. Like, uh, any kind of nutrient that builds up in the water gets consumed first by the coral before it becomes any kind of issue. They have all the bacteria that you wanted to seed your tank with anyway. So I do know some folks that are just like, I seed my new tanks with coral, and they basically never even go through a cycle. We are super conservative on that front. We had a system downstairs that was 2,500 gallons, and it stayed empty for 7 months. I don't recommend that either, but we did it. And now it has fish and coral. We probably should have just like thrown coral in there. Let's see. My pink cabbage leather turned green. Do you think that it was because they put it next to a green cabbage and the zooxanthellae swapped, or just the lighting? It could have been either one, actually. I haven't really seen that happen in cabbage leathers, but I've seen that happen in zoas. Um, Not zoas, pallies. I saw that with, you can get hybridization happening with things like purple death and nuclear greens. And so they form like a nuclear death. That's kind of a swirl of purple and green. So we've actually done that here before. But I've never really seen that with leather corals, but I'm sure it could happen. So Be the Fountain, yes. So she's on board with what Jake said, adding corals to the tank right away. Yeah, he's very much into that, was into that. R.I.P. 420 Reefer, has anyone heard from Rico lately? I texted him the other day. I didn't talk to him, but I talked to his wife briefly. The other thing is, they sell like the bacteria stuff. So I know like Fritz and the Brightwell stuff, people tend to use those. They're very popular. I haven't really relied on that a ton, but Sean Hale from Fritz was over here, and we did a little video thing. And we were actually going to restart one of our tanks. It was like a little quarantine tank. And so I reached out to him just to try some of like the Fritz Turbo Start stuff. I know some people that are like on the industry wholesale side that really like that product. So it wasn't just like, oh, just because Sean was here. It was like I have heard like a few other folks that know a ton about keeping tanks. Then they quite liked it. So I was like, I'm about to zap this tank dead. Maybe I'd like to restart it more aggressively with the beneficial bacteria. Kayla Carpenter. Anyone using the skylights? I got a 7-foot tank and not sure what lights. My 4-foot is T5. We've got 3 sky fixtures here. They're fine. There's a lot of lighting technologies that are going to work pretty well. It all just depends, I think, on how you like controlling them, and if you're like a set it and forget it person. Because if you were to blindfold somebody, bring them in here and show them all of our tanks, but they're not allowed to like look and actually see what fixtures that we have, I'm going to go ahead and bet that most people couldn't tell what fixtures were over what tanks. There's a lot of sameness once you get to that price point. Like the Ecotech Radions, like the Skies, even like the Orphec. What other ones are out there? You could probably tell a Kessel just because it's more glimmery. Yeah. So there's just a lot of lights out there. But once you get to that certain price point, they're all going to be pretty good. If there is a really specific buying decision in there someplace, it'll work itself out. Like, oh, I like this light specifically because it photographs better. That's like super legit. But if it's just for like for what most people just have for a fish tank to keep coral alive, all that, almost all of the stuff is going to do pretty well. Harkins. Going. This is going back to the Kalkwasser thing, right? This is how behind on chat I am, guys. I'm sorry. pH controller is the best thing when dosing calc, if you trust your pH probe, which I do not. Let's see. Okay, I'm just behind. I'm just gonna like skip ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Aaron Knack, recommendations on rapid slow tissue necrosis. Not really any recommendations from me. We've been trying to do some antibiotic dips lately. Don't know if it works or not. Don't know if it works. We just started trying it. Let's see. I haven't tried the blade lights yet. Those are new. One of my employees wants to try it, so I might just, might see how he likes it. Let's see. How's the SPS show tank? Not great. Like, I would have to. Let's see. What's wrong with the SPS show tank? Little bit of everything. So there was like a bacterial thing that I think happened. There might have been like a heavy metal thing that happened. There was like a pest thing, but I think that worked itself out because we just started to remove a bunch of the corals and frag them up and dip them like crazy. But right now everything is like doing well and growing back. But it had like a lot of like weird issues with that. So yeah, could be better, I guess. We're also like testing out some new pumps in there. We've got like an Abyss AFC 150, which is like a huge pump. That's been interesting. But as far as the acros go, I mean, some are huge. A lot of them we had removed for one reason or another, and they're in some stage of okay, I guess. The thing about our show tanks is that they're literally like the lowest priority thing in this whole place. I mean, there's like cleaning anything, like cleaning windows here take precedent over our show tanks. It's just one of those like super like extra things that nobody cares about because it's not producing coral for farming. We don't really care, so things just kind of like sit. Having said that, we are going to be doing an update on the Euphilia show tank fairly soon. It's going to be like a short video, but there were like a couple of changes worth talking about. Not so much with the SPS show tank, at least not yet. Let's see. You should ask our LFS how they grow their Aptasia. So it's like it's the quantity of it, It's like the quantity. I heard that like you need to have like 15,000 of them to have like a sustainable culture for nudibranchs. It's a whole lot. Do you have a homewrecker colony growing out at the moment? Yeah. Yeah, we do. James Edmonds, how would you split a bubble coral? Could you use a rubber band when it splits, cut the rock? I suppose you could probably just like saw straight through the thing. I tend to not try to cut corals like that though, like bubble corals specifically. They can get prone to infection, and you might like lose just both halves of it. So we never really found a lot of benefit to doing that. Jim, what would you suggest for newbies wanting to start taking decent pics with a camera? Camera lenses for someone with basic knowledge. We have an entire photography series. There's probably like 8 videos or something like that that you can check out. That is a really loaded topic. Really loaded. Kyle Jameson, we had issues with ST and RT, and grounding probe helped a bunch. So funny you mentioned that. We had just recently picked up a like a multimeter because we were getting some stray voltage issues specifically in our fish quarantine system, and unfortunately, like we only noticed because somebody got zapped. Um, and our fish quarantine system was made up of some older equipment that we had laying around, or it was like barely passable, like aquarium grade, like beginner aquarium grade stuff, like a power filter, or just like a cobalt heater or something, like just stuff like that. And it was hard to diagnose what was causing all these issues. So there was all kinds of problems with it, and unfortunately, we lost a bunch of fish. So we got this multimeter, and we went through and tested every single device, and it was like mind-boggling how many issues cheap products have with electrical stray voltage leaks. So the biggest um, the biggest issues came from power heads and heaters, like big time, like junk stuff. So we've been going through now and testing all of our bigger systems and stuff like that, and it's crazy. Like, well, going back to our SPS show tank, when you test like the voltage in the tank, you want it to be like under 40 volts, because like that's kind of like the cutoff point. Um, Kind of like rule of thumb, right? So we were getting like individual pumps and heaters that were like giving off more than that in quarantine. But in that SPS show tank, which has a ton of devices, it's got like 4 Ecotech closed loops. So those are like Vectra L2 pumps. It's got that AFC 150 from Abiz, giant pump. It's got 4 what are those things called? AI Nero pumps. It's got maybe 2 or 3 of the Seache Voyager 10s, tons of devices, right? And it's got 12 lights overhead. So I don't know what difference that would make, but it might. Who knows? We tested that thing, like the voltage came in at under 5 volts. So it's absolutely possible to have like a super electrically quiet tank. And no, there's no grounding probe. And I would argue that like a grounding probe might not be a good idea, just because if you have the ability to test for it, it is better to test for something and find out what the problem is rather than having a solution for a problem that you're not aware of. That's just my take on that. Not an electrical guy at all, but it was like really eye-opening to see like how many devices are really underperforming out there. Uh, B saying the SPS show tank looks incredible. I don't know. Maybe it's because all I see are problems. Lisa, Lacry Fine Art. I love the sea fans I got from you recently. Do you have a preferred product for dipping these guys? Not really. We just use like Revive quite a lot lately, and we've been dipping like pretty much all the new arrivals in Revive. We also use Reef Primer, the Polyp Lab stuff. Between those two, it takes care of a lot. There's not usually a lot of pests coming in on sea fans specifically, so grain of salt. Emmanuel, the corals I bought from a store in Canada has really low phosphates and nitrates, and they all turned brown. My phosphates were higher than zero point 0.1 and nitrates at greater than 15. It's probably not your chemistry. It's probably fine. It's There's any number of reasons why SPS can brown out. It's just not that uncommon, just because they're just very reactive to any new kind of tank conditions. So yeah, I mean that's part of the SPS game, especially with acros. Uh, it just takes a long time for them to color up nicely. Thoughts on max spec lights? I have never owned them, so I have no thoughts on them. But again, you're talking about like something that's in the price range, so it's probably fine. Grassy Peak, I would imagine that a live baby branch up daily would kickstart any Aptasia farm. I don't even know if you have to get that creative with it. I think we're probably just gonna feed it like a ton of food that we just have like laying around, like tons of food, and just seeing how that goes. Maybe we propagate it a little bit more aggressively just by getting in there and just like scraping them up a tiny bit, or but I think like the main thing is we need to provide surface area that's also easily removable, so we then can take it to where we're trying to grow the nudibranchs. For us, it was the combination of multiple devices. The combined voltage got intense. Grounding probe in the sun pretty much completely solved it. Yeah, the multiple device thing, that's a doozy, because we had a couple of like really old pumps, like 15-year-old power heads and stuff like that were working just fine. Good on them for working that long. Bad on them for kicking out about 20 volts a piece. That adds up in a hurry. And so 20 volts technically is safe, but I didn't want these things in my tank. So and again, going back to the SPS show tank example, that tank has a dozen pumps in it, and the voltages are right around like 5 volts. So clearly, 20 volts from a tiny little power head, that's not going to cut it around here. So that's going to be making its way out. But when you when you combine the two of them, we got like 38 volts or something like that, 35 to 38 volts. So yeah, the stuff does add up. And strangely, we were getting voltage like 20 plus from something as dumb as like an external power filter, like one of those like ones for fresh water. Yeah, suspicious. Ah, temperature. Yes, Harkins. We did have some temperature issues here, and that was super frustrating. Like, I think that one of the next like cheap little purchases that we're going to be making is going to be, oh, I was wondering what that sound was. Um, it's going to be getting like just some analog thermometers and just putting them on pretty much every tank just so we can see. Like I need to find a product that's pretty much dead on accurate and that's always just like stuck there in front of everybody's face, because we had, well, again, a fish quarantine system. We had like tanks that are registering a certain temperature, and that's clearly not what the temperature was, and like the heater wasn't working, and so like a couple of the tanks got popsicled, and then Becca's tank, like randomly one of her clownfish died, super duper weird, and then we felt the temperature of the water. It was like 70 degrees, like just a heater failed, and the like the little controller thing said, yeah, it's totally working, like it's heating, it's fine, it's set to 78. Yeah, no, that didn't happen at all. So now I'm like super paranoid about these little aquarium heaters, and I'm friends with like a lot of industry folks on Facebook. I mean, my personal Facebook is now more or less like an all industry networking Facebook. But there was like this one guy, and lately he's been on a tear about complaining about hobby grade heaters, and I totally get it. Like we've had a half dozen like die in the last month, and he was just like this like the sixth one this week that's dead. It's one of like the titanium ones, and I'm like, yeah. it's not super high quality tech right now. It's almost to the point that does it make sense just to always be running two of them, and no matter what, you swap them out, even if they're working, just swap them out every single year with new ones, just because eventually these things are going to crap out. Yeah, I don't know. Almost everything here is not done by hobby grade aquarium stuff. It's done by like industrial control stuff when it comes to like heating and cooling. So that stuff is like a lot more rock solid. Like these little aquarium guys are quite bothersome. Treat your Aptasia like non-photosynthetic, and they will grow it up. Yeah, I don't doubt that. And we could. There's a lot of stuff that we can just feed like crazy. Catherine Drennan. Somehow everything grows great in my tank except pulsing Xenia. I'm such a failure. No, there's certain tanks where Xenia just hates it. And it's unclear to me what is the deciding factor in that, because I've seen Xenia do well in super clean tanks, I've seen it do well in super dirty tanks, and I've seen it just melt in a whole bunch of other tanks. Right now, our pulsing Xenia is just kind of like doing okay, but it's not great, and it's definitely not pulsing. Whereas at different times, we've had pulsing Xenia that was like mesmerizing and coordinated and doing wonderfully well here. And I'm not really sure what we did differently from that time till now. Michael Osborne. Hey Than, how does Posilopora verrucosa compare with Damocornis in terms of hardiness, speed of growth, etc.? Hardiness, it's basically the same, but it's a lot slower growing, I would say. Different shape, but slower growing. Emmanuel, Than, when's the next update on your SPS show tank? I mean, I can do an update. It's just, I just think it just looks dumb. I mean, it's fine. It's okay. It's just not like filled with SPS right now. Because I mean, we probably removed like probably at some point like about 60% of the stuff in there. Started fragging it all down and stuff. Tom Gianette, I'll pay $500 for a heater if it's actually good and reliable. Funny you mention that, Tom, because I was looking at redoing my entire fish quarantine system because we put it together with like jank equipment, to be perfectly honest. And I would like to make a much better, more robust, dedicated one. And I was even looking at like getting a tankless hot water heating unit, kind of like what we have to do this entire heating and cooling business, but getting like a tankless unit and getting like a titanium coil and controlling it with like a Ranco, like a very reliable temperature probe, temperature controller, and then getting like an industrial temperature probe. Um, yeah, something like that. Because I'm kind of done with aquarium heaters too. Ugh. But at least we have a multimeter where we can test for stray voltage, and again, hopefully we'll have like better thermometers to test for everything. And it's always just like staring you in the face. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, the ink birds are the ones that BRS sells. Um, I haven't used it before. I've heard mixed things, but you know, you'll hear like you'll always hear when something goes wrong. You will almost never hear when stuff is just normal. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm guessing like the majority of people have like perfectly good results with all of these heaters that we're not happy with, but it's just like the hobby grade of heater. They're trying to hit a certain price point. I don't think that they're trying to make the most robust thing ever. But yeah, it's like a $500 heater. That's like nothing compared to how much I'm paying for heating. Like our heating technology here. Yeah, that's nothing. Greg, do you have a homewrecker colony growing out by chance? Yeah, I think we do. I think we do. Its coloration is like not great, but we do have it. Jason, how do you cut a toadstool leather from the frag plug? Do you just cut the stem? I've never done it. Um, if it's like really grown onto that frag plug, I'd probably just glue the entire frag plug down to something rather than trying to cut the leather from it. Like once it's on there, just leave it on there. Eheim Jaeger, been using them for decades. Not sure why they're not more popular. I can tell you why they're not more popular. It's because 20 years ago, they were better. They were a lot better. Um, I think that they're just mid now, just like most of the other ones in that price point. There's no really good winners. I mean, I've had Eheim Jaegers go bad. I've had Phoenixes go bad. I've had all kinds of different ones go bad. Um, we had Cobalts go bad. I'm trying to even think of which other ones we've tried. Visitherms. Like, I think that the quality since the 90s for many of these brands have gone downhill. Harkins. Koi Pond inline heaters are very reliable even in saltwater, but they cost 500 a unit. Have not messed with those. I'll have to look into it. I'm looking for something in titanium. That'd be nice. They are titanium. Okay, cool. Tom, I've seen every hobby brand heater fail multiple times. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I haven't had one where it's like this is like the most rock solid thing I've ever seen. I've never had that experience. I've had multiple failures at the hobby grade stuff. But nobody makes a prosumer semi-professional one. And I think it might actually even do well, especially for all those folks out there that are like tank maintenance people, tank maintenance professionals. I think that that would be something that like, people would be, interested in giving a try to. Because, you know, um, I mean, I could imagine them not wanting to get the call that's like, hey, my tank froze. Come out to the car dealership or wherever they're doing, or the restaurant, wherever they're doing like a big maintenance contract, just because like some $50 piece of equipment died. Let's see. Got an Eheim here that's about 22 years old. Yeah, 22 years ago, they were better. Let's see. Senso Scientific will solve your temperature monitoring issues. It's a web-based system that will send alarm notifications to your cell phone. That could be helpful. I think there's like quite a few different like control systems now that can at least give you alerts. Thoughts on the BRS titanium heaters? I have not used them. Have not tried them yet. James, I was thinking of starting up a new tank. I'm currently dosing Aquaforest. Would Calc and Dose Mag be a better setup for a new tank? Um, it would certainly be simpler. Like I happen to like just really basic stuff. So I use calc. I use a calcium reactor. And the nice thing about a calcium reactor is that it's super gentle, and you can get your magnesium through it as well because there's reactor media. There's like stuff that's literally called ARM, aragonite reactor media, and that has a magnesium formulation in it. So you can mix that stuff in to other substrates like the two little fishy stuff, the reborn, and like the combination of those two really sets a nice baseline for like calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium in a very gentle way. You do your top off with calc, that brings up your pH nicely to counteract the effect of your calcium reactor, because that obviously kicks out some CO2. So between those two things, that'll get you 95% of the way towards like the stony coral tank of your dreams. Like real simple. Recognize, loves his Hydros controller, pH, temp, and leak detection. Nice. So CoralView has been wanting me to give that product a try for quite some time. We're not really a product review channel by any stretch of the imagination, but at some point I think that Connor from CoralView is planning on coming here and setting one up and showing us like all that it can do. So sometime in the future, we'll check it out. I've seen it at trade shows, but having it here in practice is very different. Like there's a lot of stuff that is interesting at trade shows, but once you're actually messing with it, so sometimes it's more hobby grade stuff, and it's like and sometimes it's like really impressive. It's like, okay, well that was very cool. But there's certain things that like we just don't mess with anymore. Like we don't mess with any automated testing for calcium or alkalinity or anything like that. We end up being in a situation where like something just needs maintenance on it, and we never maintain it, so we can't trust the numbers or anything. So it's definitely like user error, but in practice it has to work here. So there's stuff like that we just like ended up not going with. But who knows? Hydros might be very good. You're not the only person that likes it quite a lot. I think that there's a few other hobbyists that I've met at trade shows that are super happy with it. Have you integrated any mangroves with a tank yet? I remember you said a while back that you wanted to try that. We have some growing in the greenhouse. They're doing okay. We didn't want to bring them over here because they were growing a type of red algae on its roots, and I didn't want to introduce that red algae. Since then, I think that we've even run fluconazole in that system, and that may or may not have killed that red algae. I just haven't really checked. But since they were doing so well out in the greenhouse, we just left them there. Matthew Smore, are you testing any commercial grade wave making pumps? Yes, we are actually. I'll be doing a video on it, but we've been messing around with Abiz, we've been messing around with Pantaray, we've been messing around with Deltec, all three German companies, basically. Turns out that they're all pretty good. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, we've used all three so far. If I had to pick an absolute favorite, it's Abiz. It is probably no coincidence that it is also the most expensive by quite a substantial margin, and that's saying a lot because Pantaray and Deltec are not cheap either. But Abiz is like, it's just something else. I mean, it's just crazy nice. Let's see, Matt. Hey, Than, do you still carry the ball anemone mushroom? Yes. I don't know if we're selling them, but we do have like a handful of them. Yeah, Emmanuel, it would be interesting to see which commercial products you use in a YouTube video. Yeah, we'll be in the process of making it. I mean, I put together a script, but I want to make sure that like I give each of the products at least a good amount of time in my systems before I just start talking about it, because a lot of like the little quibbles start to come up later. I do have to say that like a lot of like the really cutting edge commercial stuff is very unfriendly for a lot of consumers. You would think that like, oh, at this price point, which you're talking, I mean, I think the retail price for like Abiz is like 3,000 something. Some of the Pantaray products 2,500, 3,000 in that price range. Like you would think that, oh, this is going to be the most silky smooth experience ever, right? You're going to like plug this thing in, it's just going to run. It'll be like a breeze to program. It practically reads your mind. No, that ain't it. That goes for like all like super 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 cutting edge mega performance products, especially from Germany. Like there is a definite like Germanness about the consumer facing interfaces with the German products, and like there's like a learning curve there. There's definitely a learning curve. It's definitely not reading your mind, but once you get it working, like the beauty of the German stuff is in the engineering. Like the tolerances are super tight. The finishing, super nice. The attention to detail on the the material choices, very high end stuff. But to get it all working properly, it's a learning curve for sure. And so I want to make sure that I delve into that for myself to make sure that it's not a user error thing, because there's a lot of opportunity for user error. But if I had to make a choice right now, I've been super duper duper happy with the Biz. Um, Tell you what though, if you don't mind a little bit of noise, if you're in a slightly noisier environment, uh, Deltec makes a butt-kickingly powerful, hardcore pump with no frills. It is like, here it is. You set the power of this thing, and this thing is just gonna be a butt-kicking pump. Deltec is like super nice for that. Reef the sea forever. I just purchased some corals. Tidal Gardens. Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, industrial. There's, I would actually consider like some of those pumps not necessarily hobby grade in entirely. Like they're industrial. They come from an industrial um, background as well. Um, because I know that like so like the biggest pump that a biz makes, I think it costs as much as a car. Like I think it's like 20 something thousand dollars, 30 something thousand dollars, and I mean you might put something like that in a whale shark tank. Like it's not even like, oh, like Andrew Sandler's 17,000. No, no, it would empty that freaking tank out if you put that thing into Andrew Sandler's tank. Like that's how powerful like that the biggest a biz is. Like it might be the size of my desk, sort of thing. I'm seriously talking like whale shark tank sized pumps. Um, I should just look it up real quick. Um, the biggest a biz pump is, so the one I have is the AFC 150, which so I've got actually two of them. And Andrew Sandler. So if you don't know Andrew, I visited his tank. It's a really 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 like famous 17,000 gallon refit tank that he has in his house. Very very nice. It does. It does. How much flow? How much flow are we talking? We are talking about 60,000 liters per hour. You can do the conversion, right? That's the one that I have. The biggest one. This isn't even the biggest one. This is like the next biggest one. Is the AFC 400. This does 220,000 liters per hour. That equates to roughly 60,000 gallons per hour. 60,000. That's the mid-sized one. They make an even bigger one, you guys. Bigger one. Which I believe is the AFC AFC 1200. Let me look for that. AFC 12. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Only on the German site, of course, right? Ah, show me the pump though. Okay. Uh, I believe, yeah. Um, it does 400 and, oh no, no, sorry. That's the regular flow rate. The maximum flow rate is 550,000 liters per hour. So that's 2,400 gallons per minute. So 2,400 times 60. Yeah, that's 144,000 gallons per hour, you guys. Whale shark tank. There you go. There you go. Okay. Insane Reefer. Dan, care tips on candy cane coral. I've had one, but it's always retracted. However, I do well with everything else. Torches, micromusa, acros, etc. Okay, funny you mentioned that. Ours were kind of upset the other day as well. And I think for us, it might have been like a bacterial issue. So we started to dip them all in like an antibiotic dip with, it's kind of like a modified KFC, like a Kung Fu Corals antibiotic dip. So we were using Cipro, some Chemiclean, which I believe is erythromycin, and iodine. We didn't have the other one, amoxicillin. We just didn't have it. We didn't use it. So we gave them a dip in that. That might have helped, but what seems to be helping a lot more now is we're going through and feeding them a little bit more diligently with just mysis. Technically, it's mysis with a little dusting of TDO from Reef Nutrition's powder. Uh, Already I can see some improvement. So maybe if we can assuming that it is bacterial, assuming we can get that under control, get them fed a little bit, that'll get them all on the right track. Reef the sea forever. Nice. Picked up some Samacora, digitata, a stylo, and a Gani. Nice. Congrats. I suck at keeping stylos. Well, we'll see. They're actually super easy. We've lost literally one colony in the last few years. I would say one colony in the SPS show tank, which makes me think that there was a heavy metal issue that we were dealing with. Um, Maybe that is a good thing to talk about in an update because so when I had visited Jake in Colorado, I was kind of describing some of the issues that I was having. And he was like, I think it's copper poisoning. Long story short, it probably was not copper poisoning. But he was on the right track that it might have been a heavy metal issue. Because when we started to inspect a lot of the different items that we had in these aquariums, there were magnets that had water infiltration and were probably rusting out and creating all kinds of issues. And those were from the algae scraper magnets, and they were also from power heads, things like that. So as we went through and just audited all of our systems with that, we did huge water changes. We did some chemical filtration to try to remove heavy metals, all of that fun stuff. Over time, things did certainly improve. There might be some other things wrong here and there, but certainly the heavy metal thing could have been an issue. And we had literally a stylo that, a colony that just died overnight, and that is never a normal occurrence. So not sure what your issue would be with stylos, but they tend to be one of the more robust ones. Ronald Lambertson, have you ever seen zoa spiders infest pallies, or they stick to zoanthids only? I've only seen them do zoas. I don't think I've ever seen them do a pally. Ellery, seems like a lot of bacterial issues these days. I have had some mystery STN and recession on specific colonies only, while many others are fine. Yeah. So you know what happened the other day? So this is always a situation of you're trying to do stuff better, and in that effort to try to do something better, something gets messed up anyway. So what had happened was I had siphoned the like one of our SPS grow out containers. It's like a really nice aquarium downstairs that we are culturing most of our acros in. And so I siphoned a lot of the detritus off the bottom. And when you restart the pumps and everything like that, there's like some detritus floating around. And we have some larger colonies in there. And just because of the way the flow is, sometimes the detritus settles and makes like a little pocket of detritus in and amongst the branches of these larger colonies of SPS, especially ones that are tabling. So I go through with a turkey baster and try to blow that stuff clean because you don't want detritus settling down on colonies like that because sometimes it'll make like a dead spot because of the detritus. So I'm there blowing it all off, and the next day, some random colony will be like dying from the middle out. Like it's not dying from the base up, it's not dying from the tips, it's like the middle of the colony suddenly has like just losing flesh left and right. And it's crazy because like the part that is not actually dead, like it has full bright colors and polyp extension. Like it is giving no indication that there's anything wrong whatsoever, but something just blasted dead the middle of this colony. And then I would look, and sure enough, another one had that same problem, and another one had that same problem. And then after like a couple days, no problems. And so we had to frag those corals up and everything like that, try to save what we could. But it was like we have insane good coloration in that tank, huge polyp extension. But it was only after I like dusted the colonies off, trying to prevent exactly that sort of problem. So my guess is that it could have just been like whatever bacterial thing that's going on in one colony just transmitting to another one, and that causing some kind of issue, and we're seeing like these overnight problems. So we're going back through, we're doing a little bit more with the antibiotic stuff. We're also looking at doing just more aggressive fragging of them, so we don't have like pockets where detritus can just settle and kill a colony like that. All kinds of stuff. We're testing stuff out. But yeah, that was like a weird observation that I had recently. Daniel Valdrama. Hey, Dan. Is Samacora a slow coral grower in your farm? Mine is 2 hours old and just grew. Yeah, it's fast. It's fast. Let's see. I think I burned my stylo. I'm going to start at the bottom this time. Yeah, stylos don't need a lot of light. They can certainly adapt to brighter lighting, but I don't think that it's anything that you need to go chase. If they're under low lighting, they'll be okay. We have ours, and some of them are in really low light. Cuprazorb works well for heavy metals. Yeah, we use some. We use Cuprazorb, and we used I forget the one from Two Little Fishies, the one that comes in these little cloth bags. I caught a peppermint shrimp pulling polyps out of a stylo and eating them. It could happen. The other thing that is possible um, when it comes to things like peppermints, there's like a dozen shrimp that look like peppermints but are not the ones that you want. Like there's a very specific species, and some of these other ones simply eat coral. Go figure. We still have some peppermints, whatever they might be. But we're moving away from that because one of the things that we like to start doing now, and I've never been like a huge proponent of full tank treatments. I was always much more of like, let's do the natural thing. Let's like rely on stuff like crustaceans and snails and more water changes and stuff like that. But let's try to stay away from nuking a tank with some chemical, right? Gotta say though, I really like Interceptor. Interceptor is something that kills crustaceans dead. So it'll kill all your amphipods, it'll kill all your copepods, it'll kill all your shrimp, it'll kill all your crabs. Uh, I kind of quite like it. um, so you have to get like a vet prescription to get it and stuff, and it's not like the easiest stuff to get. It's not super expensive, but it's kind of tricky to get your hands on. But if you are able to get your hands on it, and you're willing to nuke your tank, so meaning that give away all your hermit crabs, give away all your cleaner shrimp and your peppermint shrimp and all that stuff, all your emerald crabs gotta go. Uh, it is amazing, like the level of biodiversity that it eliminates, and I am all for like a naturally kept reef aquarium system if your home aquarium. For a commercial setup, though, having some reliable reset buttons is really kind of nice. And what's also really weird about Interceptor, I guess this is something that my friend David, who used to work at Top Shelf Aquatics, because I made an observation that when we dosed an entire system with Interceptor, all of a sudden our bubble tip anemones were like enormous in size. And it's like, wow, that was weird. We were trying to like zap all these other things, and I didn't realize that anything would even be bothering the bubble tips. But something definitely got zapped, and the bubble tips look better. He said, your bubble tips might not have had anything on them. Supposedly, there is some kind of beef flavoring that's in Interceptor to make it more palatable to dogs, and it is also palatable to corals. So a lot of times your corals are responding, like having a feeding response to the Interceptor because of food flavoring of beef. So that was his take anyway. I thought that was kind of interesting. Aaron Bassler. Hi, Fan. I'm curious about my small fragate Paleothoa grandis I picked up from you while traveling through Ohio. It doubled in size, but over the last couple of weeks, it's not opening any of the polyps. That's weird. Maybe more flow? Is there anything growing on it that might be stifling it? Is there anything that's picking at it? Yeah, that's very odd. That's not normal. If it's waxy looking, it could be doing its like shedding thing and it needs more flow. And it could do with like maybe like an aggressive turkey basting to make sure it gets an opportunity to slough off whatever's going on. But yeah, generally speaking, that is not a touchy coral by any stretch. If it does open, try feeding it. That's a very, very easy coral to feed, and they grow really big if you do that. Raul, are blood red fire shrimp reef friendly? I think mine ate astrea snails. A lot of things eat astrea snails. They have a funny way of tipping over and dying. I would say that it's reef safe. Reef the sea forever. Oh no, that's like if you need to nuke a tank of flatworms. I don't know the context, but nuking a tank of flatworms is actually kind of difficult because flatworms are really good at surviving, even like whole tank treatments. The thing that we like to do to hard reset for flatworms is to take every coral out, dip those guys. We catch all the fish, catch all the little critters and everything like that, and we empty the tank out, hose it down with fresh water, refill it with new salt water, and put everything back in after it's been dipped. And we do that like every week for like 3 weeks. That's like a pretty hard reset. We'll do that. But just like doing like flatworm exit or some other treatment. I have not seen a whole tank treatment that is particularly effective for flatworms. And even what I just described doesn't keep them out forever. Like flatworms have just a funny way of showing back up again. Excuse me. Can't kill my pods. Copperband refuses to eat anything we feed him unless he has a strict self-imposed diet of pods and worms. Yeah, yep. That was a worry of mine with a mandarin that we had in that system. He seems fine. He seems fine. I don't know what he's eating, but he is eating. He has a nice belly on him. He seems fine. What are your water parameters right now? I have no idea. We have got like a dozen aquariums. It's all different. Let's see. They're all generally in the ballpark of like natural seawater levels. Like nothing is like really worth talking about there. It's in the ballpark. And all these corals are coming in from different tanks, so it's all over the place. Bad biologists. Are Aptasia photosynthetic? Yes. I had a completely white one show up. Yeah, they very likely was just in an overflow box or something like that. Oh, man. I have a primarily... This is Patrick David. I have a primarily LPS dominated tank, ran with hybrid 4-bulb T5s and XR15s. However, looking for an acro that would be fine in 20 to 25 nitrates. Honestly, just about all of them would be fine in 20 to 25 nitrates. Probably fine. They're very, like, corals are very adaptable. And I would worry more if you were talking about 0 to 5 nitrates than 20 to 25 nitrates. I'm sure that our nitrates are pretty much in that same ballpark, between 20 to 50, depending on which system. And our acros are fine. Just fine. Matthew. A friend's tank is a mixed reef, and the only things that isn't happy are leathers. The parameters, excuse me, that we can test for are in the normal range. I've suggested dosing iodine. Anything come to mind? Sometimes leathers like higher nutrient. They also like to eat phyto, I believe. Like the times that we've messed with phyto, leathers especially seem to really appreciate that. Sometimes the tanks that people keep leathers in are just too clean. That's also something to look out for. Okay. Mike the newbie. Do you have any recommendations to get rid of vermitid snails? They are going through corals and they're encrusting around their tubes. Yeah, so vermitid snails, if you don't have them now, you will. They're one of the most ubiquitous inverts that are just rampant throughout the hobby. Like, they are so good at what they do, you'll be seeing them. So there's a couple of things that I think help when it comes to vermitids. You could try the physical removal thing. That is not going to actually be successful, but if you only have a few, you can physically remove them, okay? But you'll have to do some other things. So one thing is to limit their ability to breed by limiting the amount of food that they're able to get. So if you're doing a lot of broadcast feeding, you might want to chill out on that, because that will send them into overdrive. Seriously, like it'll go from like a couple to 10,000 if you feed them enough fast, because they're a broadcast spawner. Once they're in your system, they're going to hang out for like a good long time. They'll be growing in your pipes and everything like that. It's a whole thing. So limit their food intake. So if you are feeding your corals, be a lot more diligent and directive about that feeding. Make sure that you're not just, again, feeding your population of sessile snails, right? The other thing is you could find somebody to sell you some bumblebee snails. So I was like on the fence as to whether these guys worked or not. Now, after having them for years, I unequivocally think that they work. So they're kind of like putting an acid into your water almost. Like it doesn't do anything initially, but over time, it's like there's like fewer and fewer vermitids, and it's just like it just whittles away slowly over the course of like a year. And and one day it's like, there might be some vermitids. I just don't care. There's just not. I just don't have a vermitid problem. There might be some here or there. I would have to look for them, whereas before it was like they're everywhere. I'm freaking out. It'll go from like that to I have to try really hard to find some of them. And if I look really hard, I might find a couple, sort of thing. You just need to have enough of the bumblebee snails over a long enough time horizon, and they will solve it. So cut down on the foods and feeding, put in the predator, manually remove a few here and there. Sure, go for it. That combination of things, it's a very like a holistic thing, but there's no like magic bullet to just bomb your tank and they're all gone. That's not going to kill everything else. So that's probably where I would start. But all you folks that are in this hobby, if you stick around, you're gonna get all these. You're gonna get all these pests. Like there are professional places with infinite resources, relatively speaking, that are trying to eliminate these things and are unsuccessful. And it's not because they are bad at what they do or any lack of effort or investment. It is that these pests, especially at scale, are way, way better at this than hobbyists are at keeping them out. So if you're like just like fresh and new to this hobby, I am betting on vermitid snails 100% of the time. It's like they are so good at what they do. Yeah. Oh, the problem with bumblebee snails. I'll just have to get this out of the way. They eat snails, right? They eat vermitid snails. If you have a flipped over astrea that's not doing too well, it's going to get eaten by these bumblebees. It's just part of the process. Unfortunately, you can try to save them and throw like the injured astrea down into your sump or something like that, but they do have a tendency to get snacked on. That was a long answer. My leather shrunk up when I tried to lower phosphates. Relatable. Yeah, that's totally a thing that could happen. Set up an SPS tank 3 months ago, wondering if my lighting is enough. 3 XR30 pros. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Your lighting is not your issue, if you have an issue at all. Reef sea forever. I have 3 bumblebees in my reef. Yeah, they slowly kill them off. Yeah, I mean 3 is like not very many. I'm talking like a couple dozen. A couple dozen will put a dent in it. Ellery, all pests are amazing survivors, unfortunately. Yeah, and the thing is, there's a lot of stuff that people don't even consider pests. And the reason why they're not considered pests is because they're not good enough at surviving. Because there's like beautiful feather dusters that can kill coral. There's other types of like really, really, really cool worms that grow in and around corals that kill corals, but they're not a pest because they don't like they don't fill every square inch of your tank overnight. Um, yeah, I mean, you're actually more at risk of a fast-growing coral killing off a prized colony of something else than a lot of these other things. And they're just not considered pests because, oh, that's a coral that I've actually paid money for. Like chalices will kill the hell out of stuff that sits next to them, you know. But nobody's gonna be like, oh, I hate that damn $500 rainbow chalice I bought. It killed my such and such. I hate that pest. That's not a thing. Do they eat stomatellas? Bad biologist. I don't think I've ever seen one attack and eat a stomatella. I've almost exclusively seen them attack and eat bigger snails, which is weird. You'd think that they would eat stomatellas. The only thing I notice bumblebee snails on my other snails now, so I wonder if they start eating them. Oh, yeah. Yes, they are eating them. Anton, did you know that despite being in the subclass Hexacorallia, not all stony corals have 10, except in the multiples of 6? Um, Stony corals, so Hexacorallia just means that they have septa in multiples of 6. The fact that some of them make stony skeletons is the only reason they're considered stony corals at all. There's actually not a hard and fast rule as to whether or not Octocorallia or Hexacorallia makes skeletons. It's only whether they are multiples of 6s or 8s. Because there's plenty of examples of soft corals that deposit a skeleton. So yeah, stony corals, soft corals, not a particularly valuable designation, believe it or not. So I've been seeing some information about some LEDs not pushing UV light using a spectrometer, unlike metal halides. Do you think this could be something that the reefing world could be looking at? Yeah. So most LEDs don't have real UV. That's probably a good thing because, real UV can be kind of damaging to you, for example. But there are LEDs that have UV, real UV, not just like a purple looking light. Could it be something that the reefing world could be looking at? We're looking at it. We just installed a couple of UV strips from Orphic, and those produce like real UV. And we're starting off like real slow with that, like 30 minutes a day sort of thing. Yeah, it's a curiosity. It's a curiosity. It could be interesting. It could be nonsensical. Don't know yet. I want to set up a calc reactor, but I don't know whether to use the ATO pumps to feed the reactor or use a separate pump on a timer. Thoughts? So I've never actually run a calc reactor. When I was over at Jake's, he uses calc reactors, so it basically gets fed water, and it stirs periodically and stuff like that. I don't really care about any of that. So all I did was I just have like a big container. I make the calc in it, and I dose it slowly to a tank until it's gone. And I refill it up, mix up new fresh calc, and just keep doing that. Rather than having like a continuous water source constantly stirring that and all that fun stuff. I'm sure both of them work. It's really about how you want to do maintenance of that. There might be reasons why one might be better than the other for you. Is there a way to block encrusting corals from running over others, or will one inevitably kill another when they reach each other? Can you block a coral? No, not really. Just have to remove it. Let's see. Do you run a microalgae in your system, Jason? Macroalgae? Microalgae? Not quite sure what you're asking. We have a like a an algae scrubber from Clearwater on one of our systems that we're just messing around with, and that basically grows like hair algae on the screen, and we scrape off the hair algae. We are in the process of setting up a Pax Bellum algae reactor specifically to grow like decorative macroalgae. We're going to start first with Chaeto, but then we want to try stuff like the dragon's breath and stuff like that in those kind of reactors. And that's kind of like an elaborate setup because I want to keep that algae reactor, cleaner. So the water that we're feeding it goes through a UV sterilizer first. So I want to like try to limit the amount of like contamination that goes into that chamber because I don't want to deal with like all kinds of other algae when we're only trying to grow like a monoculture of certain decorative algae. So we're messing around with that, and that is a cool little accessory hookup for calcium reactors. So it can feed your calcium reactor and take back the effluent, so that that CO2 rich water will also help feed the algae. It's kind of neat. And so then it'll be like a little bit higher pH once it gets back into your tank, that sort of thing. Yeah, one sec. I need to use the bathroom real quick, and we will catch back up with chat. Be back. Okay, I'm back. Jack Dunn or Dunny, how do I buy coral on this live sale? So you go to tidalgardens.com/live. You will see all of these numbered items there. Also read the FAQ on that page while you're at it. You have to click on the FAQ, but that'll talk about like the shipping policy and all of that. The main takeaway is that in order to purchase something, you actually have to finish the checkout process. Putting in stuff in your shopping cart and waiting a few days, that's going to go poorly for you because that does not reserve anything for you. All it does is basically nothing. So you have to actually check out in order to get the corals. The shipping is a flat rate $29.99. This might be the last live sale that has shipping that low. Shipping is really expensive, guys. I'm not going to do the entire diatribe again, but shipping is way more than $29.99. Way more. And the free shipping threshold is at $250. So if you hate to pay for shipping, definitely meet the free shipping threshold. It is a very good deal. Um, yeah. So yeah, if you have other questions, check out that FAQ. That's on tidalgardens.com/live. Chris C. Late to the party, but hey, Brandy and Than. Welcome. Bad biologist. I wonder if anyone has considered cultivating green grape algae for nutrient export with the bonus of having fresh grape seaweed to harvest. Yeah, a lot of people have grown different types of caulerpa like that, oftentimes in a refugium. Yes, Tangs love grape algae. Yep. Tom Page, I'm watching this in the bath. Tell us a story about the farm, Dan. I've told many stories so far. I've told many stories. It looks like we have about a half hour ish left of Corals to show. What's going on? So I haven't really had a lot of motivation to talk about anything in particular for whatever reason. Just not feeling all that chatty. But there are a lot of really small projects that have been getting done here, and I do find a lot of satisfaction in getting those done. So there's like this free like web-based software called Asana. It is a project management software, and it's completely like changed my life in the past few months. Because what I do is I'm able to just so I invite all the team members here, and any time that I think of something that needs to be done, any little thing, no matter how little or trivial, I will just make a task on Asana, this project management software. And it's on their phones, it's on email, it does all the things, right? And any little thing, I just create a task for it. And like all of my guys and girl are highly self-starting, right? So they, along with their daily activities, I never have to like tell them what to do today, sort of thing. They just have like a to-do list, and they just chew away at that at their own leisure. It's like if they're feeling like they want to work on something rather than another thing, don't care, work on whatever you want. And like the speed at which projects just get done and out of the way is really, really nice. The tricky thing was always like I would think about something and it would just like slip my mind, and because there's a million things to pay attention to here. So now that any little thing comes up, I'm immediately making a task and assigning it to somebody so they know that I want them to work on it. And sometimes I'll even put in the notes, it's like, hey, pull so and so also into this so that they know how to do this in the future, or something along those lines. But that whole thing has changed how we do a lot of stuff around here, and it's been great. So there might be an entire week where I don't even talk to like so and so in person, but everybody knows like what they're responsible for, everybody knows what they're working on, and they know what I want them to do. It's wonderful. So because of that, stuff has been getting done, and there's a few pretty cool projects that are worth talking about. Don't know if we have like really results for them just yet, but the fact that they're done at all is kind of nice. Harkins, project management programs are amazing for productivity. I agree, big time. What does it taste like? Broccoli? So funny that you guys are talking about that. So, grape caulerpa, I have had served to me at a restaurant in Japan, in Okinawa specifically, and It's like a very briny, seaweedy flavor. It was absolutely delicious. I am sure if I harvested grape callirpa out of my tanks to eat, it would be disgusting. Something like straight out of the ocean is very different than something that you're like cooking up in your home aquarium. So definitely would not recommend eating it, but I have eaten grape callirpa. It was very nice. It was like a kind of like a seaweed salad of sorts, but it was, in Okinawa, not from Than Sump. What's the name of the project management program again? It is Asana. I will put it into chat here. Asana. And it's free. There's some premium options that you can pay a monthly fee for, but we're using like the baseline free version and it's working out quite nicely. Okay, real quick, y'all. I want to say my thank yous again. First to the corporate sponsors, we have Ecotech Marine and Polyp Lab. Thank you guys very much for your support. And on Patreon, we'll start with the YouTube members first. We got JB Bryan, Terry Kuhn, Tampa Bay Aquaculture, Stories Reef, Herb777, Keith Holland, Justin Harden, and 328 Reef. And on Patreon, we have Big Lord Chi, Brandy Camp, that's Be the Fountain guys, Harkins Aquatics, who's Harkins Aquatics, Jeremy Altman, Scott Williams, Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Chuck Admire, Greg Bauer, I believe that's how it's pronounced, maybe, Greg Zimmerman, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Kyle Jameson, who I believe is in chat as well, Lisa Clow. She was in here for a sec. I think I might have seen one little bit of her. Lynn Holt, Michael Shelley, Puddle Aquatics, Reef Infidel, Ryan Baker, Sean Howie, Skylar Korn, Sue Hemmons, Thomas Tarrant, and Tim Garner. Thank you all so much. Let's see. Any other news? We will be launching a new website soon. So I'm looking very much forward to that. And we will be able to take credit cards more seamlessly through that than our current situation where we kind of have to work through PayPal. Long story short there, our site is old and modules are starting to die on it, one of which was our credit card processor. So the new website is fixing a lot of age-old issues that we've had, little things that we just kind of like dealt with over the years. A lot of that stuff is getting cleaned up with the new website. It's going to be better organized. It's going to be faster, which I'm all in on. And I think it's going to be a lot more mobile friendly. Like when we started Tidal Gardens, I mean, it was like 100% web browser was the traffic. And slowly over time, like the little mobile thing starts to kick up. And when we built our current iteration of our website, it was about 70% desktop and 30% mobile. Those numbers are flipped now. I would say that it's about 65-70% mobile and roughly 30% desktop. And there's certain days that I look at our analytics and see who's on and looking at our website. It's like 100% mobile. So the new Tidal Gardens website is pretty much optimized for mobile users. So you have that to look forward to. Pretty much all of you at this point on mobile. Lisa's still here. Just hanging out. Nice. Liking your repel flower today. Thank you. It came from the pocket square, and the bow tie are all from the same place, from Australia. Very, very fancy. And it was like this, I know you guys hate it when I talk about men's fashion stuff, but I had heard that there's this place that sells the best bow ties on earth. And I'm like, wow, I'm always interested in the best anything on earth. And I'm not even a bow tie wearer, but you know what? I need a bow tie, right, for like a tuxedo. So let me just try it out. And let's see if it's like the best bow tie I've ever seen. It is. So I got slightly addicted, and I have now purchased, I think, like 17 bow ties from this place in Australia. And the owner of that place knows me knows me by name and has like handwritten notes for me saying thank you in my orders now. That's how you know you went a little bit overboard. But they're nice. They're very nice. And I'm wearing them a lot more. And they are hands down the most complimented thing I've ever worn. Like, it is, I never really expected it, but it's one of the best things I've ever done. People love bow ties, apparently. Anyway, got a few minutes left, you guys. If you have any last minute questions for me, now is the time. I should say that like these items will be available into like early next week. So if there was like some things that you were just kind of like thinking about or wanted to put together a cart later on, that's possible. Some of it might be sold out. You run the risk of that. But the show will stay up for that time period. We're in no hurry to like just to yank it down. So we give everybody an opportunity to purchase stuff. We will be starting shipping on Monday for delivery Tuesday, but those slots are filling up fast. So we will reach out on and see when we can get you scheduled, and weather might play a part in that as well. Like if it's super cold where you are, we have to play that by ear. If there's specific dates that you guys need, go ahead and let us know over email. And if you have paid or overpaid on shipping because you checked out multiple times, paying shipping every single time, we will provide refunds for that. And we usually do those the day that your shipping stuff gets processed. So if your shipment is supposed to go out on Wednesday, that's when we'll deal with it. Oh no! Don't start the best bed stories now. Yeah, I haven't bought the bed yet, but I would like to. I tried out a really expensive bed. Like there's a company out there that makes really expensive beds. Like the cheapest bed they make is like 20 grand, and the most expensive bed they make is like $500,000. Legit 500 grand. And the only reason I heard of it was because, like, supposedly Drake bought one of these beds and it was 500 grand. I'm like, well, I'm curious to see what that is. So I actually went and tried out these beds when I visited my friends in Michigan, because there was a boutique there that actually had these beds. And they didn't have the $500,000 bed, but they did have like the $300,000 bed. It's pretty nice. It turns out that there are beds out there that are nicer than what most people sleep on. It's like, yeah, it wasn't just like, oh, it's a mattress. No, it was noticeably better. Yeah. I don't have 300 to 500 grand to spend on a bed, but if you're just loaded to the gills and have nothing better to spend your money on, beds are pretty nice. I say that, and then when I was visiting Harkins and some folks in Las Vegas, I had to sleep out on a pull-out couch, sofa, spring bed thing, and that was a noticeable downgrade over the Hostens beds that I was trying out the week before. There are levels to this game, I guess, right? Let's see. Matthew, have any travel plans? I will be a speaker at Reefstock in March, and I will be going to MACNA in probably September. That's going to be in Pittsburgh because I can drive there. And I have no other plans to travel right now. Patrick David. I'm a huge fan of top 5 videos. Ever thought about making them for fastest growing corals? That's a pretty good one. Yeah, that's a good idea. I have not done that yet, but it's a good idea. Jason Larawan. Thank you for the mystery box. It arrived on January 4th. Everything was perfect. Good to hear. It's always, shipping is always one of those things that, like, most of it shows up okay. Sometimes there's complications. Daniel, where do you buy your suits? I have a local custom clothier. and so they source all the fabrics from any number of different places, and it gets fabricated. I couldn't recommend custom clothiers enough, though. They're like once you get into like if you like classic men's fashion stuff like that, having like a custom clothier is so much nicer because you're not paying that much more than just like off the shelf stuff from like Macy's, but it fits a million times better, and you can have much better materials and make. So it's if you have to wear suits all the time, highly recommend it. Let's see. Oh, we have started over again. So I will finish up the last bit of questions here um, right away, guys. Thank you all for attending. This has been the first time we've been able to hang out in months, so hopefully we'll be able to do this many more times in 2023. Okay, so love all your videos. I'm in Northeast Ohio. Do you have a location open to the public for walk-ins or mail? So we don't have a walk-in thing, but we are, after 3 years now, finally starting to do by appointment for a limited time slots. Most of them are on Friday. So if you're free on like Friday during the day, there is an opportunity for that. But for a good while now, we were closed to the public. It's basically like invite only sort of thing. But yes, it is technically possible to get a shopping appointment here now. Don't screw it up, you guys. Don't screw it up. Like we could very easily go back to 3 years of nobody over here. But yes, Arthur, it is possible. Email us. Chrissy, I will see you at Reefstock. Awesome. Jair Diggles, just dipped my Welsophilia in hydrogen peroxide to get rid of some hair algae in the exposed skeleton. Wish me luck. Good luck. Hydrogen peroxide, highly effective at killing algae. Can be a little aggressive. Good luck. Rich Hawes, what parameters do you typically aim for in mixed reef? Same as anything else. It's just straight natural seawater levels and keeping them there. That's the most important thing, the stability. Keep thinking about getting the Looney Tunes style of Cineella, but not sure about care requirements. Any recommendations? It's not difficult to keep. It's just slow growing. That's the key with them. It's the slowest growing one because all the other ones grow fast. It's weird. So the prettiest one grows slowly. When's the next barbecue? I would love to come and visit. That might be asking a lot, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. How far from Toledo, Ohio are you? We are 2 hours, 2.5 hours away. Closer to 2.5 from Toledo, I would say. Don't go there and waste their time. Well, here's the thing. If people do that, it won't happen for very long. It was one of those things that was, it was oddly liberating for us when we had to do, just the complete COVID shutdown thing. It was like, we got a lot done. We had so much to do. This place was a war zone looking thing because of so much construction. It wasn't even safe to have retail customers over for like a good year and a half. But we had like our best years ever when we had literally no local retail traffic, like none. And I'm like, do we ever open back up? There's plenty of places that are similar to us that are not open to the public. And I'm looking around like, this ain't that bad. So, but at the same time, we did have some people over by invite basically. And one of them, he was like a local club president for like a Columbus club like years ago. I've known him for years and years. And he was just like, you have to open up to the public for this. Like, it's not just like for the money part of it. It's like, you have to show people that this place exists. It is so nice here that it's like a travesty that people can't come and see this. It's like the most polished retail experience anybody can have, and it's not open to retail. Like, you guys are killing me. And that's somebody that actually got an invite to come in. So, guys, technically, right now, it is possible to be here. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. So anyway, guys, that's all from here. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your weekend. Hopefully more videos coming from me soon. I've had a little bit of writer's block, but like talking it through just on this live stream, I think that we do have some topics worth discussing and some updates that I think that you would find very interesting. So anyways, guys, see you later. See ya. Where is the control box? I don't know. I don't know. As I awkwardly look to do the thing, I don't know. I'm still very much live. I know. I get it. I get it. All right. Finally found the end screen button because I actually closed that window a while back. All right. See ya.